Hi there, I'm on another one of my classic reviews. I pick one of my all-time favourite movies, give it a rewatch, and then come review it. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about Hard to Be a God, which is a Russian film that came out a few years ago and took over a decade to make, and is fucking phenomenal. This is one of those films which is just so staggering to watch, because I think even if you don't necessarily like the film, it is just incredible in terms of how well made it is. This is a film of pure visual astonishment. It is not beautiful in the conventional sense. It's a very ugly film. This is a film where everything is covered in like shit and piss and blood and mud, and it's gory and it's full of nudity and there's phallic imagery and it's black and white and the shots are long and everyone's disgusted and they're greasy and it's just There is no film I've ever seen which is as consistently disgusting from beginning to end as Hard to Be a God. Every single frame of this 3-hour movie is sickening. It's never once pleasant. And yet it's astonishing just how they managed to make such unpleasantness and repugnant stuff just endlessly going on and on. It's so tactile, the disgustingness of the film. So the premise of the film follows an observer from a futuristic Earth who basically goes onto a planet as an observer just to watch their history unfold. And on this planet they're still in the Middle Ages and they're yet to have a renaissance. But then what happens is one of the leaders starts to uproot authority and starts to install like a police state upon the world. And our lead observer starts to get worried that this is not feudalism, this is going into fascism. And that's not how history is meant to be. And he's stuck in the conundrum of whether to interfere or whether to watch it play out. And then what happens is the film becomes increasingly just a series of power struggles, a series of violent clashes, a series of one man losing his soul. The film is based on a novel by the Strugatsky brothers, who are two of the finest sci-fi authors ever, and I really love their work. They also wrote the film Stalker, which is probably what they're most famous for in the West. So their book, Hard to Be a God, is really about the rise of fascism from feudalism, and about that contradiction, about how under Marx and under common notions of history, you shouldn't be moving from fascism to feudalism. The rise of history being wrong is kind of an implied critique of Marx, I guess, but there's also a notion that theory isn't necessarily pragmatic. Sometimes the theory of history can prove to be wrong, as it is in the case of the fictional characters in Hard to Be a God. They're stuck on a planet where history does not follow conventional stuff. It is wrong. History is wrong, and that cannot be the case, or is it? So the film is far more implicit. The film does not have the explicit thoughts of the characters' heads. It doesn't go through all of this stuff. It also basically ignores all of the very big sci-fi aspects of the novel. In fact, the film is very much implicit. It's very much not full of exposition at all. The characters do stuff that follows the story of the book quite faithfully, but there's no explanation. The film never stops to explain what's going on. The plot is a complete nothing. You can't comprehend it at first. In fact, I reckon it takes at least 2 watches of the film to really comprehend the film on its own. I think reading the book is actually, if you want to know what the story is, that's where to get it from, is to read the book first. Or perhaps secondarily, it doesn't really matter. I think it works both ways. I watched the film first, I had no trouble with it. I love the film first watch around, so I'm not against that. So the film is definitely a film which is not plot heavy. It's not about its story, although it kind of is. It kind of is about the rise of fascism from feudalism. It's about a proto-fascist state. It's about religious militarism. It's about people living in violent times. It's about a world that just isn't going anywhere. It's about a world with no renaissance, a world that's stagnant. Social stagnation is a problem, and about how lucky we are to be in a world where we don't have social stagnation in the grand scheme of history. Right now we might be socially stagnant, and perhaps that's why there's a message to be had about today. But nonetheless, as a history, Earth is not socially stagnant. We are different to we were 500 years ago. But what happens if those 500 years were constant, as is the premise of Hard to Be a God? Those 500 years of squalor and filth and disgustingness that was in the Middle Ages never end. The European Middle Ages go on and on and on and on and on. Disease and filth and gore and violence and endless barbarism is just aplenty in Hard to Be a God. So we have this character who is just stuck in this world that he can't interfere with, and his whole soul is crushed. The film is about the crushing of one man's soul. It's about just the way that he loses himself, and about the way that he cannot comprehend the fact that he knows history, he knows how fascism will come around, and he knows how it's going to come around in this world when it shouldn't. But he can't interfere with it. Or can he? He's also stuck with the conundrum of everyone knows he's powerful. They think he's a god. But then he can't interfere. So if they won't interfere with him because they're scared of him, he won't interfere with them, and so he's part of the stagnation. And that's another moral conundrum. In fact, the film is filled with moral conundrums about what to do in this scenario. And at the same time, you have to just feel that well, everyone's kind of shitty everywhere. This is a society built on violence. This is a society built on nothing but pain and hatred and mud and filth and disgust. So at the end of the day, How to Be a God makes it hard for us to sympathise with people who are living in this world where they happily exploit each other and happily live in this pig-like state of just swimming in mud. It's disgusting. So How to Be a God really plays with that, and it's a real tactile film. There's so many just yuck moments. It is the most disgusting film I've ever seen in terms of just pure yuck from beginning to end. You know, yes, there's torture porn out there, but this is not torture porn. This isn't a film that makes you be horrified by like, oh, that's disgusting, because it's in black and white for starters, so it's not like particularly bloody. But like, but in terms of just horrifying you on the level of society used to be like this on our planet, and it could be like this on some other planet. It's really fucking disgusting. Some scenes happen all pretty much contextless. You don't get a lot of exposition. The plot is not explained. The film does not touch on the political allegories in quite the way the novel does. Instead, it's about the character and it's about the world. In fact, what's really interesting is in How to Be a God, the story isn't told through the story and through the plot. The story is told through world building. So constantly in How to Be a God, the camera just focuses on other people. It focuses on side characters. It focuses on the details. The camera is kind of an observer in and of itself. It just looks at everything. It looks at the details, looks at the wide shots, and it in one shot will often go from the close up to the wide shot without any sort of indication. It just moves and flows and observes everything. Characters frequently look at the camera or speak towards the camera, seemingly, and it's like we are an observer. We can do nothing. We are as helpless as the protagonist. We are watching this world of squalor and filth and disgust just eat itself up, and everyone's suffering and dying and stabbing each other, and it's just vile, and you end up watching it with the same level of apathy as the main character ends up with. It is hard to be a god, quite literally. It's hard to be the guy above the fray when you're trying to perhaps watch it. In a way, perhaps the film is a cry against the detachment of people, against people being detached towards society, against people trying to not associate and be above it. Maybe that's what the film is about, maybe not. I don't really know if it's a political message in the film. What I think is it's a dissection of society, and a dissection of what we used to be and what we can be, and how society changes and how the world changes, and perhaps we're lucky that we're in a world that can still change, or maybe we are the ones that are stagnating. There's a lot of interesting stuff to dissect, and it's a film of wonderful style. The form is magnificent. Every single shot just goes on and on and on and on and on. It just is beautiful. Then there's all the other little things that make How to Be a God so fascinating. So for example, the way that sex is used is interesting. There's tons of phallic imagery. There's quite a few penises, a lot more than most films. And there's a lot of emphasis on just vileness. There's a lot of close-ups. Every single person, whether malformed or disfigured or injured or bloody or in compromising positions, are just shown in uncompromising black and white bleak cinematography that is just sprawling. It is a real film about world building. It's a film where it'll have a 5-minute vignette of just a person just crawling through shit, and that is as important to the story as the bit where the characters talk about the plot. Except the bits where the characters talk about the plot don't even make sense because they talk without context. So it's all just about intellectual pursuit. You sit there and you go, right, this is the world, we're observing it, try and comprehend it, and you don't, and you go, oh fuck, this is what our world is in a way, because this is it. We used to be this. This was our society. What happened was we never went to fascism. But that in and of itself is not the point. The point is society changes, and do we have to go through it in the same way? Do all worlds and all people in all time go through all the same changes? And if we know that they don't, should we interfere? Or do we assume theoretically that the world will always change in the same direction and therefore we should not interfere with people suffering if we know that eventually the right change will come? The moral dilemmas in How to Be a God are the crux of what forms something like communism. The idea that the world is destined to improve to a state of utopia. But what happens if that isn't true? You can look at the film through two lenses. Lens one is a positive, the what if this is a nightmare scenario and we will never create a better world? Or the alternative is, what if this is our world? What if this is an extreme extrapolation of a world that it will stagnate forever and will never improve? What if that is the case? And I think that is the heart of what makes this film interesting. This is a fascinating, bleak, unique, unbelievably different film that is 3 hours of the most extreme kind of cinema, and it is so rewarding. It is so incomprehensibly deep in a way. It's filled with just this imagery that is constant and ever flowing and just is really, really mind-bending. There is no film like How to Be a God. It is so visually ugly, and yet the complete absence of anything beautiful really in the end makes it beautiful. It's stunning that they made a film that is this ugly so constantly, and yet it never once falters. It is still meaningful. It is still something I want to watch over and over again. It means a lot. I think it has a lot to say. The style is amazing. The whole cinematography is to be commended on every level. The way the film is structured makes you totally uneasy in a way that I think few films ever truly do. It really blows my mind that this exists as a film. If someone pitched the idea of a 3-hour movie filled with extreme violence, extreme sex, tough gore, tough watching, nothing pleasant for 3 hours based on a novel which is, to be quite honest, a lot more optimistic, I would not have ever bought the idea that someone would do this. And it's in black and white, it's fucking tough, it's ridiculous, and I fucking love it. It's maddening, and it's one of those films that I think will just be unique. No one will ever make a film like How to Be a God. I look forward to someone else reinterpreting the novels. I love these kind of, the world sucks kind of films, but man, this is something unique, special. Seek it out. You won't find anything quite like it. And yeah, you might not get it, I'll give you that. Like, it's certainly a film which I didn't get first time around, and it's certainly taken me multiple watches to really get the plot and the themes, and even I'm pretty certain I'm missing a fuck ton. But even on first watch, I was blown away by this, and now I just love it. It's a fantastic film. A film that I can't say I want to rewatch a lot, but when I do watch it, I am always blown away. How to Be God is just a classic, obviously. And I would love to hear your thoughts if you've seen this film, because man, this is kind of unique out there, and I imagine people who've seen this really know what I'm talking about. It is truly, truly wonderful. So let me know your thoughts. Leave me a like if you want, and subscribe, because I post reviews, rants, talks like this all the time. If you want to keep what films I'm watching, you can follow me on Letterboxd or on Twitter, links in the description. And yeah, thanks for watching.